Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Our title sponsor is Go High Level, also known as GHL. GHL is the first ever all-in-one platform that gives you the tools, support, and resources you need to succeed and crush your marketing goals. Personally, I have used this software since 2020. It's been a game changer for my business and our clients. If you're looking to level up your CRM and marketing game, then this is the platform to use. You can find a link for a free extended 30-day trial with tons of Builders of Authority and personal branding bonuses in the show notes. Take advantage of this opportunity to adopt the amazing software and grow your business. Today, I'm really excited for this episode. We have another in-person one lined up here in Half Coast Studios in St. Louis. He also just happens to record his podcast here as well. We actually launched the podcast, I think, a day apart back in 2022. We both met last couple years ago when we were at Spark St. Louis working in a co-working space in 2021. Since then, I've watched him grow his businesses and flourish. He was also a speaker at our last BOA Live event, but he does so much for the community of St. Louis, and his passion for business is second to none. My guest today is Luke Farrell. He is the CEO at Bucket List Creative, founder at STL Bucket List, and the podcast host of the STL Bucket List. Luke, welcome to the show, man.
Wow, man, you made me sound so good right there. I appreciate it.
Dude, you are good, man. Give yourself
that
some
was
credit.
A great intro, man. I love how you put that together. But first of all, Adam, I'm a huge fan of your show. Huge fan of what you're building. I think that our stories kind of align in a way of we were at the co-working space, we're at the same studio, we've recorded the exact same amount of episodes, and it just shows of consistent action of doing the same thing over and over again to really build results. But dude, I love what you did, and being able to shift into different things since I met you, you've been at like 3 different things over the last 3 years, which in case is very hard because I've been working on the same thing. And a lot of times you get that burnout, but you've been able to kind of pivot smoothly without having that.
Well, it's not as smooth as sometimes it makes it look. And I think there's something to be said though about like what you built as well in terms of like I've tried to, and this is something that I talk with my mentors about, is they're like, Adam, you kind of like you've been in the same space, but like it's been under different brands, and like now it's kind of my first thing that it's all me that like I'm actually promoting. And so it's been a challenge. It's been one that you've gone through yourself as well, but just like seeing your creativeness, I think, and the way in which you look at business, I think you and I kind of see very similar. And it's like just like we were talking about before, is like, yes, we do this podcast, but like it's not always the thing we see on our schedule and we're like, man, I can't wait to do this. Yeah. But we look at it from other perspectives, and so we're able to like help ourselves and our clients win in that process. So like talk to us. Let's go back to like how you got started in the entrepreneurial space. Like let's start there, and then let's talk about how you built brands since then.
Yeah. So I am 28 now. So I started in entrepreneurship in 2019. So I was 23 years old. So grew up in St. Charles County, out west. Always been a St. Louis kid. Always went down to St. Louis for ball games, for food, for zoo, for all that stuff. But my wife and I moved from St. Charles to South City. We were just dating at the time. So we lived kind of in Southampton, kind of on the hill, kind of like South Kings Highway area. We've lived there for about 6-7 years. And really, my entrepreneurship journey is kind of unique. I went to college because everybody was saying, hey, go to college, do your thing. Yep. Immediately was very, very lost at that time when I was 18, 19 years old. Ended up dropping out of school and taking a sales job. Was super passionate about people, super passionate about sales. And as you know, in business, that is the lifeblood of your business is sales. If you can sell, you can figure out the service after. And that's kind of where entrepreneurship started. So I was interested in, I was working at construction companies selling, so I knew how to sell people on high ticket items. I fell in love with marketing working at a local construction company out in St. Charles. It was a local roofing brand. And basically I was working there and wasn't getting any calls. So I said, hey, his name's Mike. I was like, hey, Mike, let me take over your guys' Google. Let me just optimize this. The Google profile wasn't even really optimized. The website was WordPress from 2004. So like it was like a 1-page HTML, like terrible. So I rebuilt the website, kind of taught myself those things, how to rebuild the website. I think this was right about the time Google ads were still pretty easy. Local service ads were popping up at that time, which I signed us up for local service ads, took some SEO courses. Actually, Joseph Hughes ended up, Mike bought me that course. So I was in his course. He really taught me how to run Facebook ads. And then Mike at that company actually allowed me to get other clients while I was still working there. So he was kind of my lever to be a contractor for him, took a limited role at that company, and then started to sell other clients, and eventually still work with him to this day, 5 years ago. But also now I'm able to work with him on more of like a monthly meeting and then go out and build my business. So really learned everything there, and that was in construction, but then I fell in love with hospitality, and that's when we created STL Bucket List. It was anonymous at the time. My wife and I would just go out to new restaurants and we would vlog about it. We used to actually write blogs when blogs were popular. My wife's an English teacher, so she's a writer, and we would write blogs. We would take little pictures on our phone, and that quickly grew to be our biggest success, and it was an accident. It was just meant to be a hobby for us to kind of like get away and like have something to do together. And now it's been our biggest success. We have 200,000 people that follow us. I mean, I see people, they're like, "Oh, you're Luke from STL Bucket." Like, it's crazy. I would never imagine that because I was so passionate about being in digital marketing that now like this one thing that we did on accident became actually our winning formula.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal because like I think like a lot of people, like obviously I know your story, but I think a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, that's Luke at STL Bucket List. Like he's got this thing over here," and like, yes, obviously you're running it, but it's like, no, I had this other company first that's like still going, that's still super fruitful, that's still like the backbone. You implemented a lot of those strategies into this new company. And so like, how has it been building all of these different brands that like each need their own attention? How do you manage that?
So there's two sides of it. So we used to be Mango Marketing. We rebranded to Bucket List Creative. Same exact company. We do the same exact things. It's just we wanted to create cohesiveness through both the brands because people would get an invoice from Mango, but they know me from Bucket List. So it was just like, let's just make it Bucket List Creative. So the reason we're so successful with STL Bucket List is not because of me. It's because we use our agency team and the people that are working there to help us build that brand. And I think that a lot of people want to build these nationwide brands and they want to have multi-million followers and they want to be a public speaker and all these things that is attainable, but it's a 1% of 1% to get there. When you're on a hyper local level, we just decided to double down on our city. We love our city. Most of the people that work here with us are either from here or went to school here and stayed in St. Louis, so they have a passion about the city. And we just think it's easier to fish in a smaller pond. And that's kind of what we did. We doubled down on St. Louis. If you live in St. Louis, there's 3 million people in the greater metro area. They're probably following STL Bucket List if they're on Instagram. And although we can't grow to millions and millions, we know that we can be that hyper local force. But I think building both the brands together, it's hard because we have clients that we end up spending a lot of time on STL Bucket List that some of our clients are like, "Hey, I see what you're doing over there. It's really good. Why aren't you translating that to here?" And I think that's an ongoing battle of like trying to be an agency and take care of our customers, but also trying to take care of our business, another business that's all under the same umbrella. And it's an ongoing battle. And they're like, "Hey, why don't you post this more on there?" That's the big thing.
Well, and I think that's like one of the things that like I struggle with as well is like people would see what I was doing in my auto glass company, and then I'd have them for 6 months doing SEO, and they're like, "Why am I not the number one result, getting 1,500 calls a month? Like you're talking about this other company over here." It's like, well, a lot of different things to take into consideration there, but one, that started in 2018. You're just now seeing this in 2024. That's 6 years apart of different things happening, but everybody looks at like what you're doing and wants that for them, and you have to like, it's an unfortunate battle of being like, I have to do also for my company what's best for my company, and what's best for my company isn't always what's best for you as my client.
Exactly.
How have you managed that?
I think it's just we're in customer service. That's what we do. I mean, being in the agency world, it's an ongoing battle of a retainer that's a lot for some of these businesses, and then it's also making sure that they can get a return. So we spend a lot of time on systems. We've invested a lot of money in tracking to really show people what we're doing, but also I think it's just being passionate about growing those clients and growing those customers. I mean, I spend all my waking hours thinking about how we can make our clients better. We have about 35 monthly clients. So although it sounds like a lot, it's really only 35 people that we're dealing with. It's not that much when you consider with most businesses. But I think building a great team, making sure that our team is managing, 5 to 7 relationships so that they can feel good about, that they're getting touched enough. But yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing battle, man. The agency will age you. I know you've been there before. Yeah. It's extremely profitable when you're doing it right. But it's extremely hard. Like I had a tough conversation this morning right before I came here when we lost an account that's a pretty good account that is a lot of yearly revenue, but we just have to keep rolling, you know?
Yeah. I think that's the part that sucks, because even like yeah, it can be very profitable when you're doing things right, but it can also be not profitable when you're doing a lot of shit right.
And anxious because you feel like you're not doing enough, and you get this anxiety.
And
sometimes.
that's what like that's where I think like so many people get this thing wrong. And so I like grew really, really quickly. Like we hit 7 figures in 15 months, 1.75 million in 2022, and I was almost more profitable at one point. I was almost more profitable at 750 than I was at 1.75 million. So it's like I grew an additional $1 million, had an additional $1 million worth of problems, additional $1 million worth of clients, like double the amount of clients, and I had to hire more team members. And so like going back and doing all this shit over again, it's like, no, I have 2 team members, a couple contractors, but I don't want the headache of all of those things. There is a way to be profitable and make the money you want, and you don't have to even get past 7 figures. You don't have to do those things. Now, if you want to go do them, great.
Right.
But so many people think more top line revenue is just like more money in your pocket, and that like, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah. So when I was a solo entrepreneur, I made about the same take home as I do now. But I did have everything. I had to do every single task, and I wasn't doing what I was selling. Because there's not enough hours in the day. So although yes, the numbers, like let's say, $500,000 in revenue as a solo entrepreneur after expenses and stuff, you're making a lot of money. But I felt like I didn't have like a work-life balance. So I think now we're on track. We should hit 7 figures for the first time. We have a team of 6 full-time people. But what I'm seeing is I'm now able to have a work-life balance, also manage people, create jobs. But there's still people problems, man. That's the one thing that I have a person at our company, Kyle, he really handles the team and really handles those people problems, those salary discussions, those team meetings every week, because that's what drains my energy. I look at my calendar. There's a video I found on TikTok. It's like, look at your calendar. I think it's Noah Kagan. And he has his calendar, and he colors the stuff that give him energy, and then he colors the stuff that takes energy. And he needs to make sure that he has stuff that gives him energy. So what gives me energy is onboarding meetings, meeting new clients, being creative, going out on video shoots, going out on set days. Like that's what gives me life. Being in the office, talking to people about salary discussions is not giving me life. But yeah, I think I'm making probably the same take home, but I'm also doing a little bit less work and being able to actually, like I had my first child in January. I was able to step away for a month and not work, which that was the first time in my life that I was able to do that. And things actually ran a little bit better without me there. So that's a good sign. But then we're seeing months that we're definitely not great because of how high salaries are. So it's just hard.
And that's like the ever evolving like situation. You got to figure out like the quest in business and life. And that's what like I think I see so many people struggle with it, and they try to attain these certain things because they feel as if they get to a certain like level in business and everything is going to get taken care of, and money for me, I thought would solve problems being in medical device sales, and I thought it would solve problems or at least like give me the things that I wanted. And it's like you can pretty much go and do whatever you want, but if the work-life balance isn't there, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, like that was part of my problem. Is I grew so quickly that we had 125 clients. Like clients would call me and I'd be like, I have no idea where your stuff's at. And so that's where it's like now as I'm kind of like doing this new thing, it's like I want to know where everything is at.
Well, they're calling Adam because Adam's the guy. They're like, Adam's the guy, but you're like, I've already passed this to a different team, and I really don't know the quality. You can't quality control.
You can't quality control, but it's also like when you're selling that standard, right? Like the way in which you would do things. And just when you're in the wrong system with the wrong people, it can't necessarily always go that direction. And so that has been a massive learning lesson for me, that like I still think I'm unraveling and uncovering things that I would have done differently, right? Like if I had to go back on it. But one of the questions that I had for you is as you're building like these different brands, and kind of what we were just talking about is like, it is more than just the Luke show now. And so how has that been? I know you mentioned like having Kyle manage the people and all that stuff, but like, how do you hold that standard? Because people are buying from Luke or the brand, and then they're getting everybody else.
I think that the STL, so just speaking of STL Bucket List in general, nobody had that login for a long time because I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with the brand. I was obsessed to replying to every message. I was obsessed with every single aspect of it, because when we make a post, a lot of people see it and then they're like, oh, that's a reflection of Luke and Marissa. And we hired a full-time social media manager, Olivia, graduated from SLU right next to our office. She came in. She's from Chicago, which is actually interesting, but she is now the full-time social media manager. She picks the places we feature. She has a new set of eyes on this city because she's from a different city, and she has her face all in the videos. She's doing voiceovers, but what I love about STL Bucket List is I can pass that baton over. Videos can go out, posts can be made, and I don't have to be in the posts.
Yeah.
Because that if it was just me, there's no way you could do that. You can't scale that and raise a family and want to go and like do those things. So I think that now, although I'm still involved on every single client has my cell phone number. I know everything that's going on. I can kind of rest easy knowing that some people are actually better at it than me.
Yeah.
And they're not as attached and obsessed with it as me, and they're bringing actually new things to it. Now I still oversee stuff, but I've been a little bit better about just kind of letting things go because it's like, that's actually probably fine, and not that fine's okay, but it's like, it doesn't always have to be your way because there's no way you can grow that way.
Yeah. So you talked about earlier about like, hey, I had a tough conversation before I came in here. Like, how have you, like, obviously, like the last thing any of us want to hear is like a big client leaving or a client leaving in general. Like, how do you handle those conversations? Because for me, I always took it as like a personal reflect. And I made a post about this the other day. Is business just business, or is it also personal too? Like, I take those things somewhat personally. I've gotten better at it over the years, but like that's tough, especially because people buy from us, right? Yeah. How do you handle those conversations, and how has that evolved over time?
So I used to really like actually get super sad. I would get really low and really high. If I sold a deal, I would get super high. Like I would celebrate it. I don't find myself celebrating anymore, which I think I need to bring back that because I think there's value in like going out to happy hour after a good deal instead of just going home. But the lows, I used to like really think about it. It would keep me up at night. I thought like my business would fail if one person left because I was like, hey, let's just say it's a $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money every month that could go away. And with that one that happened today, I think it was mutual. I think business is just business. And I don't want to make people feel bad, even though we're friends, or like I'm friends with them in a way. Yeah. Because of this relationship, I want them to be able to do what's best for their business. And if working with us isn't best for their business, then I think that like today, the conversation was we want to hire somebody in-house. And I told them, I was like, that's actually probably better. Yeah. Because you're going to pay the same amount as somebody in-house. Like it's better. That's what I would do. And that's what I said today. I was like, you're right. That's what I would do. And then I said, let me know if you can't make that happen. We'll try to work something out. But that was kind of the conversation today. But I think it's hard, but I just know that I can't get too high. I can't get too low because right after that, I got an email right when I was out here that somebody had accepted something. So it happens like that all the time. Yeah. I mean, there are bad months, but I think that it's always hard to lose. It sucks to lose.
Yeah. Well, I think as well as like there is the maturity aspect in business, and like I've had to, I'm still, like I said, I'm still trying to fucking process my whole shit of like how quick I grew and the fact that like I feel like I let people down. In all reality, I didn't, but it was more so of like my expectations for myself and anything I put my name on are so high, so I've had to kind of debrief from that. But it is like one of those things where I think you mature over time, where like if somebody pisses off calls now, it used to be I would go into that hole. I'd think about it all the time, and I still do, but from a different light of like, hey, how can we make this right? Because usually a lot of times it's the perception of what they thought they were getting versus the reality of what it was versus, oh my gosh, we effed up. Like if it's the we F up thing, like that's easier to fix than it's what they thought they bought, and they had incorrect expectations that I or somebody else on my team set. And so like, I think for me, that used to be like, I'd like go into quick defense mode and be like, what the, like trying to figure it out, but like do it in a non-constructive way. Right. So I think like, as we have both probably grown, it's more of like, okay, like let's just find the solution. Like, and if there's not a solution, we need to part ways. Great. But I know for me in the beginning, it used to be like, I'd wear it on my shirt of like, fuck, I fucked up. Like, this sucks. I want to make it right. And then I'd make the situation right. And then it would end up screwing me over at a later point.
Well, because then you'd over deliver and then they would expect that again. And I think Hermosi said something one time of like, you mentioned like switching brands and like switching things and doing things. Is like, you only have so many personal brand bullets in your holster. Yeah. So like, that's why he doesn't attach his name to certain things. And like, when you do it, that's why it matters so much. Like if we make a customer upset, during an STL. So we have two sides of the business. We have the agency, and then we have STL Bucket List, which I would say was like influencer brand partnerships. So that probably, the agency is probably 65% of revenue, and then 35% of revenue is probably just paid posting. We do a lot of paid posting, probably 10 to 15 deals a month. on just STL Bucket List. Either one of those deals, if one of those people is upset and I see an email, I will immediately hop in and reply as quick as possible and try to fix it, because taking care of the customer is the number one priority. Profit comes after that. If you take care of the customers, you're going to be successful after. But I think that it does mean much more. We had some controversy on Bucket List of like places we didn't post, and people were like commenting my name in the comments, like, oh, Luke's not like looking around or like this, but it wasn't even something I did. Yeah. But I hop in the comments, and I shouldn't do that, but like it matters to me. Every little thing matters. And that's how we built the brand, by highlighting the people, places, and events. And if we're not doing that correctly, then we're doing a disservice to the community, because we're also a community platform and a business at the same time.
How do you handle that? Like because like I mean, recently I've gotten more like exposure to people being like, you know, I make a post and somebody's like, you know, whatever, you're wrong, whatever, great, okay. But like at 200,000 people, like there's got to just be constant DMs, comment. Like how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think it's just, I respond to all of them. I don't like ignore people, but I think most of them are valid. Like the one we recently got is we weren't highlighting a diverse amount of places. We were just highlighting a certain neighborhood, or so a lot of those I take as like, there's a reason why they're saying that. Nobody's going to send a message. I mean, some people will send a message just to send a message, but I reply to all of them. And I appreciate the feedback, but it definitely hurts, man. Like you think about it, like they're mentioning your name, they're mentioning you. You don't really have that privacy. I mean, your tag is your name. Yeah. Is your full name, you know? So it's like my personal page is private, and that life is, I try to make that private if I can. Yeah. But even just having a podcast and like stuff like that, like people know so much about us that don't even know us. So it's really hard. So when somebody says something, even if I don't know them, it does hurt. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it does hurt, but I think there's a reason, and I look through it, but there's trolls for sure.
Well, no, I think like, and the reason why I asked that question is I think for a long time, like I would get on social media and I would be inundated, right? Because like I grew my whole business literally on Facebook, and then like the more and more I grew and kind of how it evolved, it was like I had to be on social media all the time, because I had to, like, if somebody tags me in a post to say, hey, like we're looking for digital marketing and Adam's the guy, like, you know how it is, like you have to hop in there, right? And so like I was so fascinated with like being inundated there, because I was so worried about like not getting the client or somebody saying something and all those things, because I was really insecure about like what was behind the scenes, insecure in the fact of like, man, like maybe we shouldn't take on more clients, or maybe like I'm not confident in what we're doing right now, because I couldn't go fix it myself. So it was like kind of a different situation that obviously like you have control over now, in your thing. But I think there is that aspect of like, I think most of it comes from an insecurity. Most of it comes from all those different things. But there are people that just like want to go down that hatred route and do all those different things. And that's one that I haven't necessarily like gotten eye to eye with yet myself. And so I'm asking questions selfishly to like know. Like,
I think it'll be different with you because it's your face, it's your name. Every video has you in it. Like if you look at our page, I'm very rarely in there, probably once every 20 posts. But I do think it matters. But to your point that you were saying about like, should we take on another client? And I think that's an ongoing battle. And I'm actually in the position now where I want to overhire. And the only reason I want to do that, like, yes, you have to bring on more salary, but I want to be in a position to know that everything is taken care of and that we can actually grow. Because nobody wants a business where you don't want to make a sale. Yeah. Because there is points where I'm like, ooh, I don't want to sell this. Like, I hope they say, like, I hope they say yes, no. But I also hope they say no. Like, let's revisit in 3 months, because you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. If they say yes and they want to onboard next week, I don't even think I'll even have the energy to onboard it. And I've been there all the time. And I think with agencies, that's the biggest issue is people are understaffed and overworked and stuff like that. So, no, I think it's interesting. But yeah, man, it's been fun though. I'm so passionate about Instagram. Instagram's kind of our thing. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so bullish on the growth of Instagram, especially looking at the metrics of how many more people are spending time on there. TikTok's a new thing that we're trying to grow now. I think we're up over like 23,000 on there now. Trying to get that, because that's where my wife's a high school teacher, and I ask her, when you take people's phones, what are they on? And they're on TikTok. Oh, yeah. So they're not. So that's like, that's the trend.
The next thing.
So like, we got to be there, you know, when they're there. Because like people, Facebook is kind of on the way out. Not on the way out. It's still there, but it's like Instagram's the new Facebook, and then now TikTok's the new, you know.
Yeah. What, going back, starting in 2019, what's like the one or two things that you would do differently based on like what you know now about entrepreneurship?
I would have invested in branding and built a better website, because now our website, I don't want to redo it because it's just, I would have like done a lot of things different. So now anytime I start a new brand, so one of the things that we're doing now is like, we're kind of like coming in as equity partners on small, like trying to get into e-commerce, trying to get into like brands that kind of fit with STL Bucket List. And we're doing everything right. We're taking 6 months to get all the bank accounts set up. We're getting operating agreements done. We're getting trademarks done, stuff that we didn't do then because I didn't even know. I made my logo on Fiverr. I saw you made a post on Fiverr. I paid somebody on Fiverr. I did all this stuff in Canva. I did all this stuff. Like, I wish I would have just invested like $5,000 in a brand kit and a website and like just been done with it. And people try to like go cheap on certain things, but then they go really expensive on other things. But I would have done it better and actually thought, I didn't even think it was a business. I just thought it was a page. That's all I thought. Like, I just was making a page and we were anonymous. Like, nobody even knew. And then it turned into a business when people were like, hey, how much would it cost to do a promo on your page? And I'm like, I don't know, $50. That was my first sale. It was $50. And I was like, I made $50 from that post. My life changed. When I sat at my desk at my other job and I made a post and then he Venmo'd me $50, I was like, okay, my life just changed.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What are you most excited about for the future?
I think I'm most excited about the new businesses. So we're working with a skincare brand. We're going to be working with, we're looking at real estate projects in St. Louis. So I think that STL Bucket List, our vision for STL Bucket List is to have an STL Bucket List HQ in St. Louis City, somewhere that needs help, like an area that we could redevelop or be a part of a bigger redevelopment, and then also get into more real estate projects. Like that's where I think my passion actually is. I just built a new home and I was so obsessed with every detail, and I love real estate and I love those things. I know you had a couple real estate guys on I listened to on your podcast. And I think that that's one of the things that AI is not going to be able to replace.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that long of a runway with what I'm doing now, to be honest. I mean, I think that if I could squeeze 5 more years out of this, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
But I know we have to do something with the money we're making now. Yeah. Because I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you and I are thinking a lot of the same stuff. It's why I made the move that I did, and kind of where I'm going with it too is kind of like trying to figure out what those next, like not just the next 5 years, but after that. So I'm excited to see, man, like where I met you, like literally 3 years ago versus where you're at now and what you're progressing to has just been amazing, man. Yeah. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, where can people stay connected with you and all your companies?
Yeah, so STL Bucket List on Instagram, we're the most active on there. Bucketlistcreative.com is our rebranded agency. I don't post as much personally. I've been like, after going to BOA, I wrote on my baseball that I wanted to build that brand. I know I have the content. We do cool stuff every day. Yeah. I got the little Osmo. I can bring it around. Like, I can do it. And I think that I'm going to take this podcast as like something to start posting on the personal brand on side. Yeah. Because every time I've done that in the past on LinkedIn or Instagram, I get business.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. But like sometimes like I'm so busy that I'm not even posting, and it's like that's a good thing too.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna do some my personal Instagram, Lucas W. Farrell, and then my LinkedIn, just Lucas Farrell. So yeah, come find me. But yeah, STL Bucket List. Stay up to date if you're in St. Louis for sure.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
And thanks again to the audience for listening to today's episode, and to our title sponsor, Go High Level. Without them, we aren't able to produce the quality of content or have amazing guests on like we did today with Luke. Check out a free and extended 30-day trial in the show notes. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review as well. We'll see you next time. And remember, authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.